Tunbridge Wells. John Wilmot. At 5 this morn, when Phoebus raised his head from Thetis' lap, I raised myself from bed, and mounting steed, I trotted to the waters. The rensvus of fools, buffoons, and praters, cuckolds, whores, citizens, their wives and daughters. My squeamish stomach I with wine had bribed to undertake the dose that was prescribed. But turning head, a sudden crusade view that innocent provision overthrew, and without drinking, made me purge and spew. From coach and six a thing unwildy rolled, whose lumber, card more decently would hold. As wise as calf it looked, as big as bully, but handled, proves a mere Sir Nicholas Cully. A bawling fop, a natural Noakes, and yet he dares to censure as if he had wit. To make him more ridiculous, in spite nature contrived the fool should be a knight. Though he alone were dismal signet enough, his train contributed to set him off, all of his shape, all of the self-same stuff. No spleen or malice need on them be thrown, nature has done the business of lampoon, and in their looks their characters has shown. Endeavoring this irksome sight to balk, and a more irksome noise, their silly talk, I silently slunk down to the slower walk, but often when one would Charybdis shun, down upon Scylla 'tis one's fate to run, for here it was my crusade luck to find as great a fop, though of another kind, a tall stiff fool that walked in Spanish guise. The buckram puppet never stirred its eyes, but grave as owl it looked, as woodcock wise. He scorns the empty talking of this mad age, and speaks all proverbs, sentences, and adage. Can with as much solemnity buy eggs as a cabal can talk of their intrigues. Master o' the ceremonies, yet can dispense with the formality of talking sense. From hence unto the upper walk I ran, where a new scene of foppery began. A tribe of curates, priests, canonical elves, fit company for none besides themselves, were got together. Each his distemper told, scurvy, stone, strangury. Some were so bold to charge the spleen to be their misery, and on that wise disease brought infamy. But none had modesty enough to complain their want of learning, honesty, and brain, the general diseases of that train. These call themselves ambassadors of heaven, and saucily pretend commissions given. But should an Indian king, whose small command seldom extends beyond 10 miles of land, send forth such wretched tools in an embassage, he'd find but small effects of such a message. Listening, I found the cob of all this rabble pert bays, with his importance comfortable. He, being raised to an archdeaconry by trampling on religion, liberty, was grown to great, and looked too fat and jolly, to be disturbed with care and melancholy, though Marvell has enough exposed his folly. He drank to carry off some old remains his lazy dull distemper left in's veins. Let him drink on, but 'tis not a whole flood can give sufficient sweetness to his blood to make his nature of his manners good. Next after these, a fulsome Irish crew of silly macks were offered to my view. The things did talk, but this hearing what they said I did myself the kindness to evade. Nature has placed these wretches beneath scorn, they can't be called so vile as they are born. Amidst the crowd next I myself conveyed, for now were come, whitewash and paint being laid, mother and daughter, mistress and the maid, and squire with wig and pantaloon displayed. But ne'er could conventicle, play, or fair for a true medley, with this herd compare. Here lords, knights, squires, ladies and countesses, chandlers, mumbaken women, sempstresses were mixed together, nor did they agree more in their humors than their quality. Here waiting for gallant, young damsel stood, leaning on cane, and muffled up in hood. The would-be wit, whose business was to woo, with hat removed and solemn scrape of shoe advanceth bowing, then genteelly shrugs, and ruffled for top into order tugs, and thus accosts her, ampersand quo. Madam, methinks the weather is grown much more serene since you came hither. You influence the heavens. But should the sun withdraw himself to see his rays outdone by your bright eyes, they would supply the morn, and make a day before the day be born. Ampersand quo. With mouth screwed up, conceited winking eyes, and breast thrust forward, ampersand quo. Lord, sir. Ampersand quo. She replies. Ampersand quo. It is your goodness, and not my deserts, which makes ye show this learning, wit, and parts. Ampersand quo. He, Puzzled, butes his nail, both to display the sparkling ring, and think what next to say, and thus breaks forth afresh, quo. Madam, egad, your luck at cards last night was very bad, at cribbage 59, and the next show to make the game, and yet to want those two. God damn me, madam, I'm the son of a whore if in my life I saw the like before. Quo. To peddler's stall he drags her, and her breast with hearts and such like foolish toys he dressed. And then, more smartly to expound the riddle of all his prattle, gives her a Scotch fiddle. Tired with this dismal stuff, away I ran where were two wives, with girl just fit for a man, short-breathed, with pallid lips and visage wan. Some curtsies passed, and the old compliment of being glad to see each other, spent, with hand in hand they lovingly did walk, and one began thus to renew the talk, quo. I pray, good madam, if it may be thought no rudeness, what cause was it hither brought your ladyship? Quo. She soon replying, smiled, quo. We have a good estate, but have no child, and I'm informed these wells will make a barren woman as fruitful as a coney warren. Quo. The first returned, quo. For this cause I am come, for I can have no quietness at home. My husband grumbles though we have got one, this poor young girl, and mutters for a son. And this is grieved with headache, pangs, and throes, is full 16, and never yet had those. Quo. She soon replied, quo. Get her a husband, madam, I married at that age, and ne'er had 'em. Was just like her. Still waters let alone, a back of steel will bring 'em better down. Quo. And 10 to 1 but they themselves will try the same means to increase their family. Poor foolish fribble, who by subtlety of midwife, truest friend to lechery, persuaded art to be at pains and charged to give thy wife occasion to enlarge thy silly head. For here walk cuff and kick, with brawny back and legs and potent prick, who more substantially will cure thy wife, and on her half-dead womb bestow new life. From these the waters got the reputation of good assistants unto generation. Some warlike men were now got into this throng, with hair tied back, singing a bawdy song. Not much afraid, I got a nearer view, and 'twas my chance to know the dreadful crew. They were cadets, that seldom can appear, damned to the stint of £30 a year. With hawk on fist, or greyhound led in hand, the dogs and footboys sometimes they command. But now, having trimmed a cast-off spavined horse, with 3 hard pinched for guineas in their purse, 2 rusty pistols, scarf about the arse, coat lined with red, they here presume to swell, this goes for captain, that for colonel. So the bear garden ape, on his steed mounted, no longer is a jackanapes accounted, but is, by virtue of his trumpery, then called by the name of quo. The young gentleman. Quo. Bless me, thought I, what thing is man, that thus in all his shapes, he is ridiculous? Ourselves with noise of reason we do please in vain, humanity's our worst disease. Thrice happy beasts are, who, because they be of reason void, and so of foppery. Faith, I was so ashamed that with remorse I used the insolence to mount my horse. For he, doing only things fit for his nature, did seem to me by much the wiser creature.